May I now introduce the next panel speaker, Jacques Cornic. Jacques is going to speak on the insurance committee. Jacques is a partner and head of KPMG France Insurance Advisory Practice, and he's part of KPMG's European Insurance Leadership Team. Jacques is coordinating all the activities of KPMG France in the sector. Prior, he spent almost 15 years in the insurance audit of KPMG. Jacques, the IMF has raised concerns about the robustness of the insurance sector as posing to the financial system. I'm very much looking forward to your views on how and what measures need to be in place to stabilize the insurance sector.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, there are two main regulatory streams in the insurance industry. One is about protection for policyholders, and the second is on systemic risk. I will focus on the second one because this is probably the one where G20 has the most influence in the regulation, and this is where the insurance committee can make propositions which are probably will be useful for the G20. Okay. First, maybe coming back to the financial crisis. Insurers always claim that they have been very resilient during this crisis. There was only one case, very well known, which is AIG. And what insurers are saying, well, AIG was in difficult time, not because of insurance business, but because they were selling CDS. So because of banking activities. So what is called now non-traditional, non-insurance business. And this NTNI concept is now retained by the regulators as one of the key drivers to select insurers which are considered to be systemic. And there are 9 of them selected currently in the panel of groups which could bring systemic risk to the financial system. The second point is the fact that there is probably differentiators between P&C business and life business. And I have sympathy for the insurance industry working in P&C, defending the fact that they do not bring any systemic risk. It is less obvious when we talk about life insurance. If you look at the solvency capital requirement in Europe today, I think about, in average, 70% of the capital requirement is driven by market risk for life companies. So it just shows the link between the financial market and the insurance industry. And if we look at the environment on low interest rate, we have been mentioning that before with our colleague in bank, it's clearly one of the key challenges for the insurance industry in life business. Especially when you do have some mismatch between your asset and your liabilities. So there is another reason for another consequence of the low interest rate environment. It can also push some players to invest in riskier assets just for the search of yield. And this was mentioned by the IMF report also. Another point which could be very interesting in our insurance commission is also to look at emerging risk. When we talk about emerging risk, we can mention cyber risk, we can mention technology is also more largely disrupting the industry. Climate change was already mentioned previously in the panel. These are drivers which could also hit heavily the insurance business. And we could really think about are there any consequence on systemic risk appreciation driven by those emerging risks. And this is maybe a debate we could have in the Insurance Commission too. Looking at the IMF report, which was done in April on systemic risk, I think there was 2 key takeaways on my side. Something very new was what they call correlated behaviors. Because of harmonization of regulation across the world and especially across Europe, the risk profile of the balance sheet of insurers has been converging. So IMF is not very much afraid of domino effect of insurance failures, but more about stress scenario where all insurers will behave in the same way. And as they are very important players on the financial market, being on security lending, on buyer of corporate bonds or investors, the fact that they could behave in the same way at the same moment in the case of stress scenario, this is really something which is not really, in my view, well appreciated today in the regulation. And the other very new elements which come up of this IMF study is the too many to fail concept. Not only too big to fail, but there are many small insurance players. If you look, the market is not as much concentrated as in the bank industry. So you have many mutual companies, small companies, taking risk on their asset side, and there is not only the risk of too big to fail, but too many companies at risk and maybe failing at the same moment. So these are broadly the environment industry is facing at the moment. So if we look at the regulation and have a very quick overview at the work of IAIS, which is the association working on the framework of regulation for systemic risk. They have been building a very complex framework with different layers of regulation. I will not enter into all the detail of that, but the image on the right side is just showing the perception of the industry regarding this new regulation. It's coming on the top of the local and regional regulations. It's not well related to the current framework, which are local and regional, and it's creating a lot of complexity. And if you are a big, one of the big 9 insurance groups, you have to cope with your local regulation, regional regulation, and now coming IS framework. And having all those layers of regulation makes something not very digest. And if you look at the burger, I mean, are you sure that this is the more healthy thing that to eat burgers? So I would just drive the discussion of the insurance committee of how could we, what could we suggest to the G20 to have these regulations trends being better organized and better designed to meet the emerging risk, to meet the too small to fail, but also to be easier to digest for the industry. Thank you very much for your attention.